Hello, this is Brady Loughry, and
Patel.
this is our presentation. Um, we are looking at Down syndrome and possible treatments to improve quality of life. Certain hormone GnRH we researched was a treatment that had been used before, and so you know the background information. Down syndrome is a genetic disorder. It's caused by abnormal cell division, resulting in an extra full or partial copy of chromosome 21. Down
Yeah,
syndrome carries a number of symptoms that include intellectual disability and loss of olfaction. Manfredi Lonzo recognized a similarity between the symptoms of Down syndrome and a deficiency in gonadotrophin release hormone. We're going to simplify to GnRH. The study conducted interventions to restore physiological levels of GnRH in TS65D in mice. The researchers observed improvements in olfactory and cognitive function after the introduction of GnRH. So the researchers in the study moved on to humans. They selected 7 men with Down syndrome and achieved some fairly convincing results that were improvements to cognitive ability. This is a graph from that study. This is showing the mice population. Uh, Here on the left, we have two control groups, just regular mice in the gray. And in the red, we have uh, mice with decreased intellectual ability or loss of olfaction. So similar to that of Down syndrome in humans. Uh, The only significant one of the experimental groups would be the pulsatile infusion, which is where the GnRH during like the treatments would be released sort of like in a pulse by a pump. And so in the paper they said that this is most naturally mimics the human body's release of GnRH. And also what GnRH is, it stimulates the pituitary gland, which causes the release of two other hormones, LH and FSH. These gonadotrophins in turn stimulate the goans, which is sex organs, ovaries and testes, and they produce sex hormones. There's usually a lower amount of GnRH in Down syndrome patients. So that's what they were trying to look at in the mice here. Hypothesis.
so for our hypothesis, we said gonadotrophin releasing hormone GnRH levels were increased in humans with Down syndrome, then there would be a significant difference in intellectual ability. And then our null was that there will be no significant change in intellectual levels after the treatment of GnRH. And then we predict that there will be an increased amount of for our experiment. Well, we predict that there will be an increased level of intellectual ability after GnRH treatment. For our experimental design, we had 100 participants that have Down syndrome, and we will test them at the beginning with the Wechsler Intelligence Scale for Children, also known as WISC, and a spatial cognition test. Then participants will undergo a treatment of pulsatile GnRH therapy for 6 months. The drug will be administered using a Loughry pulse pump system at a dose of 75 nanograms per kilogram of body weight every 2 hours to replicate how the LH pulse frequency happens in healthy humans. Then we will run the Wechsler Intelligence Scale test again and a spatial cognition test every month for 6 months to compare the results from the beginning of the trial to the very end of the trial. And a spatial cognition test may be only qualitative, but the IQ test is the main test we will be looking at in this study.
Yeah, and so our experiment is based off of the study that we read. It's mostly just an increased scale, as they only had 7 participants or patients in the human. And we're sizing it up to see if we can get a little bit more bigger of a data set. And moving on to results, we made this chart, what we kind of would expect or hope for in our experiment. This is just on the y-axis is the WISC IQ test score. Typically, someone with Down syndrome would score averagely around a 50 all the way up to a 70. And the average human would score around a 90. So here we just said that pre-treatment, the average out of 100 patients would be around 50. And then as the months progress and they keep taking the test and keep being dosed with the GnRH, hopefully their intelligence would get a slight boost and they could maybe score higher on the on average on the test to get around 70 here. And then we have a significance bar showing the difference between pre-treatment and month 6. So if this was true as a graph, we would accept our hypothesis and reject our null hypothesis. And if we were to run a t-test comparing pre-treatment in month 6, we would hope for a p-value under 0.05 for a two-tailed t-test.
For the implications for this study are that if the results are very important, because this study can help determine future treatment plans for people that are affected by Down syndrome. If the study is successful, then we could also make new treatments and they could get a slight increase in their standard of life for patients that have Down syndrome. And these are our citations that we use to formulate our hypothetical study.
Right. Thank you very much.
Thank you.